"Papa, please wake up," the child whispered in dust. The cowboy stood silent, promising to care for her. "Papa, please wake up." The child's voice cracked against the silence. Her small hands shook his shoulders, but Thomas Whitmore's eyes stared past the evening sky, past everything. Blood pooled beneath his head, dark against the dirt. Mercy pressed her ear to his chest. Nothing. She tried again, harder this time, her 7-year-old heart refusing what her mind already knew. "Papa, please. Mama's making supper. You have to come inside." Boot steps crunched behind her. She spun around, tears cutting tracks through the dust on her cheeks. A tall man emerged from the shadow of the barn, his hat pulled low, a gun still smoking in his hand. "You killed him." Her voice was barely a whisper. "No, child." The cowboy holstered his weapon, his weathered face grim. "I came to stop it. I was too late." "Liar." She scrambled backward, her small body shielding her father's corpse. "I saw you." "I saw the gun." Kane knelt slowly, keeping his distance. His voice was rough as sandpaper. "Look at the wound, Mercy. Look close." She didn't want to, but something in his tone made her glance down. The blood came from the back of her father's head, not the front. Her breath caught. Someone else did this. Beat him with something heavy, made it look like he fell. "I heard the shots from inside your house. When I got here, they were gone." "Who?" The word came out like a sob. "People who wanted him quiet." Kane's jaw tightened. "Your pa found out something he shouldn't have." Mercy's world tilted sideways. Her father was the kindest man in the county. He fixed broken fences for widows, shared his crop with families in need. Who would want him dead? "Where's your ma, child?" "Inside. She's sick again." "Real sick." Mercy wiped her nose with her sleeve. "What do I do now?" Kane stared at Thomas's body for a long moment, something heavy settling in his chest. He'd ridden here to warn him, to tell him to stop asking questions about the railroad deal. Instead, he'd found a good man murdered and a little girl orphaned. "I'll take care of you." The words left his mouth before he could stop them. "I promise. Why would you help me?" "Because your pa was trying to do right." Kane removed his hat. "And because somebody needs to pay for this." The dust settled around them, but the rage in his chest burned steady and bright. Mercy slammed the kitchen door hard enough to rattle the windows. Kane didn't look up from his coffee, but his shoulders tensed. "She'd been building to this for weeks. I'm 14 now." She planted her hands on the table. "Old enough to know the truth. You know enough." Kane's voice was steady, but she caught the warning underneath. "I know my father's dead. I know you promised to take care of me. I don't know who killed him or why." Her eyes burned. 7 years, Kane. 7 years of you changing the subject every time I ask." He finally looked at her. The scared little girl was gone. In her place stood someone harder, sharper. Someone who wouldn't be put off with half-truths anymore. Some things are better left buried. Not this. She sat across from him, her voice dropping low. "I dream about him every night. I see his face in that dirt, hear him calling my name." "The dreams don't stop, Kane. They're getting worse." Kane set down his cup. His hands were steady, but she knew him well enough to see the slight tremor in his jaw. "What do you want me to say?" "The truth. All of it." She leaned forward. "You said people wanted him quiet. What did he know?" "Mercy. What did he know?" The silence stretched between them. Outside, the wind rattled the shutters of the little house he'd built for them on the edge of town. Far enough from prying eyes, close enough to civilization. A careful balance, like everything else in their life together. "Your father found out about a railroad deal." The words came out slowly, like they physically hurt. Some powerful people were buying up land cheap, forcing folks out. He started asking questions. "Who?" "People you don't cross in this county." "I'm not afraid of them." "You should be." Kane's voice turned sharp. "They killed a good man to keep their secret. What do you think they'd do to his daughter?" Mercy's hands curled into fists. "So we just let them win? We just pretend it never happened? We stay alive? That's not living." Her voice cracked. "That's just breathing." Kane stared at her for a long moment, seeing too much of her father in the set of her jaw, the fire in her eyes. He'd tried to protect her from this moment, but it had found them anyway. "Sheriff Coleman." Kane's voice went dead flat. "And his daughter Ruth. They needed your father's land for the railroad to come through. He wouldn't sell. Mercy felt the world tilt. Sheriff Coleman had been at her father's funeral, had shaken her hand with tears in his eyes, promised to find whoever did this terrible thing. You're lying. I wish I was. Kane stood, pacing to the window. Ruth Coleman runs everything in this county. Her father's just the badge. She wanted that railroad deal more than anything. How do you know this? Silence stretched between them. Kane's reflection in the glass looked haunted. Because they hired me to convince your father to sell. When that didn't work, they hired me to kill him. The words hit her like a physical blow. She gripped the table edge until her knuckles went white. But you didn't. No, I got there too late. Someone else had already done it. Made it look like an accident. His voice cracked. I found you crying over his body. Who killed him? Ruth's men. She doesn't like to get her own hands dirty. Kane turned from the window. That's why you can't go after them, Mercy. She's got half the county in her pocket. Judges, deputies, businessmen. You'd be dead before you reached the courthouse steps. Mercy was already moving toward the door. Where are you going? To ask her myself. Mercy, stop! Kane grabbed her arm. This isn't some dime novel. She'll kill you. Maybe. She pulled free. But I'm tired of living like a ghost. Your father wouldn't want this. My father would want justice. Her voice turned cold. Since the law won't give it to me, I'll make my own. Kane watched her walk toward the door, seeing her father's stubborn streak in every step. If you do this, there's no going back. Good. She paused at the threshold. I'm done going forward anyway. The door closed behind her with a soft click. Through the window, Kane watched her stride down the dirt road toward town, her shadow long in the evening light. By the time she reached Main Street, word would spread. By midnight, Ruth Coleman would know Thomas Whitmore's daughter was asking questions. Kane reached for his gun belt. Some promises were kept by letting go. Others required you to follow someone straight into hell. The sheriff's office smelled like stale coffee and old lies. Sheriff Coleman looked up from his desk as Mercy pushed through the door, his weathered face creasing with what might have been concern. Mercy Whitmore. Haven't seen you in town for months. I want to know who killed my father. Coleman's pen stopped moving across the paper. Behind him, his daughter Ruth emerged from the back office, her expensive dress out of place in the shabby room. At 25, she carried herself like she owned the world. In this county, she practically did. Your father fell and hit his head, Coleman said carefully. Tragic accident. Liar. Mercy stepped closer to his desk. He was murdered because he wouldn't sell his land. Ruth laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. That's quite an imagination you have, dear. Is it? Mercy turned to face her. 7 years ago, you needed his property for the railroad. He said no, so you had him killed. That's a serious accusation. Ruth's voice turned ice cold. Do you have any proof? The office door opened behind them. Kane stepped inside, his hand resting on his gun. Coleman's eyes went wide. Kane Murdoch. Thought you'd left the county for good. Hello, Sheriff. Kane's voice was steady, but Mercy caught something underneath. Recognition. History. Ruth smiled like a cat with cream. Well, well. The prodigal son returns. Mercy's blood turned cold. You know him? Know him? Ruth laughed again. Kane used to work for us. Best gun for hire in 3 counties. That was a long time ago. Kane's jaw tightened. Not that long. Ruth moved closer to Mercy. Tell her. Kane, tell her who you really are. Shut up. Ruth, he was supposed to kill your father that night. Ruth's words hit like bullets. I paid him good money to put Thomas Whitmore in the ground. Mercy felt the world spin. She turned to Kane, searching his face for denial, for anything that would make this lie. Is it true? Kane's silence was answer enough. You were hired to kill him. Her voice came out broken. Yes, but you changed your mind. I got there too late. Someone else had already done it. Kane's hands shook. When I found you crying over his body, I couldn't leave you alone. So you raised his daughter instead. Mercy's laugh turned bitter. How noble. It wasn't nobility. It was guilt, Ruth clapped slowly. How touching. The killer becomes the protector. Mercy looked between them, 7 years of trust crumbling like ash. Get away from me. Mercy, please, both of you. Just stay away. Mercy ran until her lungs burned, stumbling through the cemetery where her father lay buried. She collapsed against his headstone, the carved letters cold under her palms. Thomas Whitmore, beloved father. The lies cut deeper than any knife. What do I do, Papa? Her voice cracked in the darkness. Everyone I trusted was lying. The wind stirred through the dead grass, carrying whispers that sounded almost like words, almost like her father's voice. You said to always do what's right. Even when it's hard. She closed her eyes, and suddenly she was 7 again, standing in their kitchen while he bandaged a cut on her knee. Sometimes the right thing costs everything, little bird. But that don't make it wrong. Papa, I'm scared. The memory shifted. Her father's face, serious now, the way it got when he talked about grown-up things. Fear ain't the enemy, Mercy. Running from what needs doing is. She opened her eyes. The cemetery stretched around her, full of people who'd lived and died under Ruth Coleman's rule. How many of them had been silenced? How many families destroyed? I could leave. Her words hung in the cold air. Pack tonight? Take the train east. Start over. But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. There was no starting over with this weight in her chest. No running from the ghosts that would follow her, or I could make them pay. The thought came clear and cold as winter water. Ruth Coleman had killed her father and bought his murderer's silence with fear. She'd sat in that office tonight laughing about it like it was nothing more than a business transaction. I'm not strong enough. The wind picked up again, rustling through the oak tree above her father's grave. In its sound, she heard something that might have been his voice. You're stronger than you know, little bird. You're my daughter. Mercy stood slowly, brushing dirt from her knees. The cemetery gate creaked behind her as footsteps approached. She didn't turn around. Come to talk me out of it. Come to help. Kane's voice was rough with guilt. If you'll have me. She finally looked at him. Why? Because some debts can only be paid in blood. The courthouse door exploded inward as Mercy kicked it open. Inside, Ruth Coleman sat behind the judge's desk, like she owned it because she did. Thought you might come back. Ruth's hand moved toward the drawer. Daddy's waiting outside with his deputies. Let them come. Mercy stepped forward, Kane flanking her right side. We're not leaving until this is finished. You think you can just walk in here and demand justice? Ruth laughed. This is my county. My rules. Not anymore. Mercy struck a match. The flame danced in her palm like a living thing. You're bluffing. Am I? Mercy dropped the match onto the stack of legal documents covering the desk. Land deeds, railroad contracts, bought testimonies. 7 years of corruption caught fire in seconds, you little bitch. Ruth lunged forward, but Kane's gun stopped her cold. Step back. The flames spread fast, climbing the curtains, licking at the walls. Ruth's empire built on paper, and lies turned to smoke and ash. You can't prove anything now. Don't need to. Mercy lit another match. Everyone in this county knows what you are. They just needed someone to light the first fire. The courthouse groaned as the flames reached the rafters. Outside, people gathered in the street. Not deputies coming to save Ruth Coleman. Townspeople watching their oppressor's seat of power burn. This won't bring your father back. No. Mercy walked toward the door, leaving Ruth trapped between the flames and Kane's gun. But it'll make sure you can't hurt anyone else. They stepped outside as the roof collapsed. Orange light painted the faces of the crowd, and for the first time in 7 years, Mercy saw something other than fear in their eyes. Hope. She stood in the street, watching Ruth Coleman's legacy turn to ash and smoke. The scared little girl kneeling in the dirt was gone. In her place stood someone harder, someone who'd learned that sometimes justice had to be taken, not given. 3 days later, they stood at her father's grave again. The smell of smoke still clung to their clothes. Ruth Coleman was dead, burned alive in her own courthouse. Sheriff Coleman had fled in the night. The railroad men will send others. Kane's voice was tired. This isn't over. It is for me. Mercy knelt by the headstone, placing a handful of wildflowers against the carved stone. I did what I came to do. What now? She looked up at him. 7 years of guilt had carved lines into his face, but something else lived there now. Peace, maybe. Or just exhaustion. You're leaving. Have to. He touched the bloody bandage on his arm where Ruth's bullet had found him. Too many people saw my face. Won't be safe for you if I stay. I can take care of myself now. I know. A small smile touched his lips. Your father would be proud. They stood in silence, listening to the wind through the oak tree. Somewhere in town, people were already rebuilding. A new sheriff would come. New laws would be written. The world would keep turning. I never thanked you. Mercy's voice was soft. For keeping your promise. I didn't keep it. Kane shook his head. I was supposed to protect you. Instead, I taught you to be a killer. You taught me to fight back. She stood, brushing dirt from her knees. Sometimes that's the same thing. He nodded, understanding passing between them without words. Some debts could never be fully paid. Some promises required sacrifice. Take care of yourself, Mercy Whitmore. You too, Kane. She watched him walk away until he disappeared beyond the cemetery gates. Then she turned back to her father's grave, no longer a child whispering in the dust. The ghosts were finally quiet.